Well, 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 look what Japan has given themselves, ultimately. But we will get this at our 2 year anniversary. This is Zoma's Blossoming Tree, which is, like I said, at the 2 year anniversary, which for Japan is in a few days, I think. Maybe at the end of the month, turn of August 1st, something to that effect. Soon, regardless. But it's pretty good. It's pretty overall good, and it's got a very niche thing, potentially. It's new to the game altogether, but you've seen bad guys do it to your team a million times. And what we have is, first, his new one of his two new abilities. This one called Psycho Requiem. There we go, which is a great name for a spell, a movie, a band, or whatever. But it's a major typeless spell, and it begins its targeting at 3 range, so it's kind of like Archdemon, Arc Kaboom. 2x3 AoE, like I said, begins targeting at 3, so it can stretch to 4 panels away from you, which is good for him because he only has a 2 move. He didn't, unfortunately, get another move in his tree, but with that kind of AoE, it's not really needed. And it's good to sort of keep him in the back, as his agility isn't really high anyways, so he might be good for a unit in arena to go later in the turn order. But yeah, any typeless anything is great, especially spell, especially with that kind of AoE. So unless you're going up against a team that has a lot of bounces on them, spell reflect, then he's good for pretty much anything. And his next skill that he gets, Disruptive Wave, which you might know it as Frigid Wave from enemies doing it to you, like I said a million times, claims it removes some status changes on enemies. Well, I can't read today. Remove some status changes on all enemies in range once per battle. That's important. This, by the way, is translated. The guy on Reddit who did this, thank you for translating it. So it only removes some status changes. If I had to guess, so it's not way too broken, it probably would just remove stat buffs on enemies, like buff, oomph, ping, and all those other crazy named skills. Yeah, but I'm wondering if I left a comment on the Reddit saying I wonder if some EX content moving forward would kind of almost require this. A lot of main bosses in EX content get kind of juiced up once they lose a certain threshold of life, and maybe this will instantly cancel that, or you can kind of stick to a usual strategy of either juicing up your tank while handicapping the enemy, but you have to rely on constant percent chance procs for that to happen. This may get rid of that altogether, which is amazing if that's the case. So, on to his next, not ability, it's a passive ability, and it's actually like an upgrade from an existing thing he has, which is currently called Dark Robes. This is now called Endless Dark Robes, because before I think it was 20% reduced damage for like 2 turns. Now he has 30% reduced damage at the start of the battle for 10 turns. That is really good. So if you're able to if he doesn't get one shot, you can kind of keep him healed and keep him up to where if you're fighting some PvE content and they're unable to do all the damage in one turn, but you can kind of refresh his HP, and because of that 30% reduced damage, you're able to do that. That's kind of neat. Because he doesn't have a ton of hit points. I think he only has around 800-ish if he's like awakened once or twice if you have him rank 8 at that. So, and on that note, he is in the battle roads and we still have double EXP, so if you have the materials to rank him up to A8 or S8 now, it's probably worth doing that because you can level him up for free. Of course, you can do it later, but the double EXPs are there now, so. And then his last one, Unlimited Magic Power at the start of your action on even numbered turns, so turns 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, it stops at 10. That's a kind of a familiar mechanic as of late, for us at least. Recovers up to 8% of his max HP and raises Wisdom and Spell Potency. And I believe Potency is just a damage multiplier, so you can easily get him Wisdom capped, and then even if he's Wisdom capped, the Spell Potency is just a multiplier on top of whatever he's putting out. And it raises his healing effects. So as I said before with his Endless Dark Robes, if people can't chunk him down and you can heal him, where turn 2 he's going to receive more healing, 4 even after that, and so on. So that all around is really good. He's got a typeless AoE, a large AoE at that. He can slow down enemies, which like in arena and stuff, that's not going to be really useful. But like I said, for some EX content that might be, depending on what it actually does, might be like that thing to avoid so many frustrating procs back to back, to where you're constantly resetting your EX content, or you're watching Afro's video or Eye in the Skies and you're like, why isn't this working the same? You know, because RNG sucks and that's why. So yeah, that's overall. He's, like I said, unless you're going up against a team that has like all bounce, you know, mechanics on him, he's pretty much great all the time. And then he also gets a nice little, he gets 2 nodes at 100 HP. I'm going to guess that's the 2 on the left, the far west node, and the one kind of right inside of that. So yeah, that's quite the treat. Let's go ahead and look at his existing setup. Zoma at rank 8, which is 130. Awakening 1, I put him at there because I personally only have him at Awakened 1 time, which is weird given the amount of times I've pulled shit from the banners. I've only found 2 of them in the entire game, but okay. Master rank 30, yeah, I think I'm around 30, I forget. Well, anyways, he has basically 800 HP, so he'll have almost 1,000 HP if you have him awakened. Let's say you have Awakened 5. Well, let's say you have him at Awakened 5. There we go. That's good English. He'll have over, 1,100 give or take, that's pretty good for a spellcaster. Pretty rare too. Most spellcasters, like I said, a lot of times are pretty easy to one-shot if you hit them with their very weak mechanic. But currently Zoma has his Breath, which is not really useful in the slightest unless you're going against someone who's weak, very weak to stuns, and your damage won't kill him, plus the people after you, so it might be worth it to stun him instead, but that's really niche. A single target major spell, which that's not a useless skill in the slightest, but given him overall not being great lately, given everything else we've gotten new to the game, this and his other major, the first, when he came out, spell in the game, the major AoE crack spell, it just hasn't seen a lot of use lately, which is a shame. But come 2.0 for us, yeah, he's he's going to be a fan favorite. His Dark Robes, as mentioned earlier, which he has now, which is 20% reduced damage for 3 turns. Like I showed earlier, it gets upgraded to Endless Dark Robes, which instead of 20%, it's 30% reduced damage, and instead of those few turns, it's 10. And that's really good. And him being pretty easy to get over 1,000 HP, that might be pretty good. I don't know, we'll see. And his regular Awaken stuff, lowers MP cost, raises potency. None of this changes, so that's all existing. But he, at his core, he's half resistant to sleep, half resistant to spell lock, which is great. He's really weak to bind, and by really weak, I mean if you occasionally bind him, it will guarantee him. So like against Crystal Linda's Frozen Fetters, or a few other bind things. But that's fine, given that he has spells with AoE, especially his new stuff. Being binded isn't the worst thing. He's immune to stun, which is amazing. Really weak to paralysis, that sucks, but it's got to be balanced somewhere. Weak against whoosh and zap, that's okay because there's not a lot of whoosh. And there's some zap if you don't have Gorsby, or if you didn't really juice up Baron, Dai's father, I think is who he is. There's not a lot of zap in the game. Well, Terry and Slyinhardt. Slyinhardt doesn't really see a lot of use anymore. Half weak against Frizz, that's great. Frizz is, if I had to guess, hands down the most common damage type in the game. And half weak, or takes half damage against, by default, unless you have him Awaken, of course, 2 and 4 times, and it's 75% reduced. But Frizz and Bang are his things he's strong against, and those are easily the 2 most common ones in the game, so that's a big plus. He, yeah. I think, yeah, he's going to be not ultra top tier, but right below it. And pending on what Disruptive Wave does, for that niche case, if it's something really valuable, then he might be considered top tier for the given situations where that is the go-to strategy. So, yeah, someone mentioned in the Reddit how, this is power creep. And no, it's not, because this doesn't take the existing most powerful things and make it more powerful, making it easier for you to shit on enemies that are in the game now. This is just another original option now kind of beefed up to be another option to use overall. And no, it's not the new most powerful thing. So no, it's not power creep. It's kind of like if anyone plays Diablo 2 Resurrected, when the developers started to rebalance the core game and get all this new stuff, everyone said it's power creep. It's like, well, no, because all the existing metas aren't stronger, everything below it, which is sucked for 20 years, is now almost as powerful as the most powerful stuff. So the game doesn't get easier overall. You just have now more options. And that is a really good thing to see. If they, reintroduced, or not reintroduced, but gave Zoma Blossom Tree and it was like double major, this, that, and the other, and then Disruptive Wave removes all benefits off enemies and you can use it more than once, and he had a 4 move, or if it was just out of control, then that would definitely be power creep. That would just be in the realm of silly. So, but no, we have, Sorrow and Fallen Angel for that right now. At least in a global, that's the top tier silliness as far as power goes. But yeah, I had enough materials to get mine up to 130. I wish I found him more than twice in the game, but yeah, here I am. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this a lot, actually. Good on Zoma, getting some love. There you go. Maybe we'll find out what's underneath that hat. Yeah.